A paradigm for looking at the process of progress. I invite you to imagine a second hand that is slowly moving around a watch, and every time it makes a full revolution, the minute hand moves one time. And the minute hand, which moves around the watch, and every time it makes a revolution, the hour hand moves along, which goes through a 24-hour cycle, and the day moves to another day, which goes to another cycle, and the year moves another year, which goes through another cycle, and so it goes. Now, everyone is in the enterprise of creating sustainable goodness, meaning we all want to feel good and we don't want to feel bad. And in the process of that enterprise, we have a paradigm. We have a hierarchy of values within that paradigm. We have a strategy for engaging with reality, and we have a level of competency in both implementing the strategy and also measuring our implementation of the strategy. And then we have a byproduct of well-being. The goal is always well-being. The byproduct is a given quantity of well-being on the dimensions that are being measured. And this is where the measurement system, of course, ties into the paradigm. In a chauvinistic cult, the externals will be measured. It does not matter if you are lonely in a $200,000 top-of-the-line hospital bed in a chauvinistic cult. It does not matter if you are more anxious and losing health because of the loud beepings in the variety of machines that you are imposed on and forced to listen to while sleeping in the hospital. And it does not matter that you get woken up every 3 or 4 hours to have your vitals checked in ways that the nurses will admit have absolutely nothing to do with your health. You could just as easily be woken up every night of your life to have your vitals checked, but has to do with insurance and other protocols. But that's not what's being measured. No one is being asked, did you receive a 60% reduction in sleep last night thanks to being woken up every several hours and listening to loud beeping noises throughout your sleep? Oh, interesting. Well, who cares about that? What we want to know is, did anyone sue us because they claimed we didn't check on them, and the loud beepings and such for the entire population, decreasing sleep and well-being for those in a place of healing is just an incidental byproduct of the real thing that's being measured. Is the shareholders want to know if everything is being done to minimize lawsuits. And so the paradigm of well-being is, are shareholders getting adequate dividends from hospitals, not whether people are experiencing a high return on well-being per dollar spent. Because if it comes down to it and you spend 24 hours in a hospital at a cost of $20,000, by far the most expensive hotel you even come close to staying in, only to have the worst night of your life imposed by the very protocols of the hospital, then this is a negative return on investment. You have had additional suffering and have paid more for that suffering than just about any other option one might imagine, other than perhaps a torture cell, where the design was specifically to amplify the pain, but then you don't have to pay for those usually, because it's usually someone else paying the bill for that torture. So you have a possibility, or you have a dividend, a yield of well-being per unit of energy invested. And that energy is in the form of money. How much money did it cost to ruin your hospital stay? How much natural resources were consumed? And you realize, oh, with all those beeping machines and just the sound of the beeping and this and that and the other, and all the paying of the nurses to wake you up in the middle of the night, you realize it consumes more electricity. The equipment costs are higher. They had to ship in one piece of equipment from Japan to wake you up in the middle of the night. Then there was another one shipped in from Germany, so more fossil fuels expended in the process of waking you up. And so you have higher natural resources consumed. And then there's more time, so there's money, time, and natural resources. And then you think of, well, what about the nurses and staff and all that in that environment? Are they enjoying the beeping? Are they enjoying having to work night shifts so that they can wake you up in a way that they don't believe in but is required for insurance protocol? Of course they're not. They'd much prefer some soothing ambient music or silence to loud beeps. So everyone is experiencing a decrease in well-being as a result of many of these protocols. And so in the paradigm, you look at what is being measured. And in a capitalist paradigm, the primary measurement is shareholder value, which involves various things to minimize the risk for the shareholders and increase the return on investment for the shareholder. And the underlying enterprise of healing or whatever is largely incidental. That's a paradigm of shareholder value. Now, the thing to understand in the evolution or the change is we all exist within this hierarchy of different structures. And the first step to change is to become competent at the implementation of the strategy, however barbaric or intelligent that strategy may be. So you have a refinement of competency. You have a refinement of data gathering. So we gather better data about the strategy to see how well we're doing. And then we use that data to improve our ability of implementing the strategy so that we do better at it. And this usually is in a direction of efficiency. And so if robotic arms can wake you up at every 4 hours to check your vitals, and save time because you don't waste time complaining bitterly to a steel arm that's grabbing you. Well, this is great progress within the same paradigm. It's being done more efficiently. We don't have to pay overtime. The robotic arm can record things automatically for the shareholder value so that they can say, no, this machine did perform this movement per camera observation at this time. And the shareholders are delighted. Risk goes down, and now you can be woken up every 4 hours with the robotic arm. As you move on to the next step, you deal with the strategy itself. So the strategy in this case is the strategy of maximizing shareholder value by you've moved from people doing it to mechanical arms doing it, and so you say, okay, how's that strategy working? Well, everything is in an evolutionary process, and so round about the time that the strategy is being perfected, the ultimate way and the cheapest possible way for the shareholders to wake you up regularly and protect their investments in the stock, not their investments in your life and well-being, but in the stock, people get fed up. Another alternative springs up and says, rather than spend $20,000 protecting shareholder value and being inconvenienced and experiencing decreased health in your establishment, I think I'm going to go with this other company that actually focuses on me. And so the underlying asset depreciates. Oh my goodness, people don't want to come and be harassed by our robots anymore. What is the world coming to? And all the shareholders, of course, have to scurry out of that company and into the new, friendlier company where we don't use robots, might be the slogan. And so now that company is making more money, but then the same deterioration, may occur. Where now that the shareholders are investing all this money, they want a good return. So could the new establishment just cut back a little bit on the niceties? Maybe if we treat people badly, they'll spend less time in our hospitals, much like the McDonald's strategy of painting the walls red and yellow, because studies were done that people wolfed down their food faster to get out of such an uncomfortable environment, which meant that the building didn't have to be as big to sell as many burgers, which was, surprise, surprise, good for shareholder value, not the stomachs or the well-being or the enjoyment of the customers. And so, basically, this is a flawed paradigm. Whenever you put shareholder value ahead of the prioritization of the primary underlying asset, which is the contract between a service provider and someone in need, which is as valuable as the amount of well-being provided to the person in need, which includes aesthetics, which includes efficiency, which includes courtesy, which includes a sense of humanity. So the company is only as valuable as the customer values it. And the customer only values it relative to the options available to them based on how much value that service provider gives relative to another. So what do we like as a customer? We like to feel like a human being. We like to be listened to. We like to feel like our feelings matter. We like to feel that the person knows what they're doing. We like to know that they'll show up on time. We like to feel like there's flexibility for our uniqueness. We like all these things. And the person that can provide the most of those things for the least price is the one that we value the most. We're loyal to that relationship. Which means that if a shareholder wants to invest and get a return on investment, there have to be a lot of customers. Particularly if it's to grow, it has to be better than the competition, not worse, and deteriorating. And so so ultimately you come back to the paradigm itself and you realize that the paradigm of shareholder value trumping all other values, delivers a certain amount of well-being. Now, it has a benefit, meaning if you don't focus on shareholder value, people don't invest as much money, is what it boils down to. If you have a $5 billion industry that you want to grow, and you've got $100,000 in starting capital, and you need to raise the rest from investors, the people who treat the investors the best are going to get that capital. And so it's not that the shareholder value paradigm is flawed, or it's not that it's atrocious, that it should never have existed. It just can only take things so far. The ultimate evolution of paradigm is, first of all, you need educated investors. Because if you have a group of investors who do not understand that their primary asset in any investment is the customer relationship, is how valuable the customer ranks the company or service that they're buying from, because that determines how their loyalty, their referral rate, and how much they're willing to pay. That is the underlying most valuable thing. Unless we realize that, which requires a sophisticated investor. A sophisticated investor wants you to rapidly grow your company by providing more value than anyone else and focusing on that equation. A simplistic investor says, I just bought your company, and I see you're spending $1 billion a year on advertising. Let's cut that to $500 million and give that to me in a dividend. Well, that works well the first year, but then the sales go down. And so they say, well, you've got this research and development building, you could sell that off to one of the competitors and bring in $1 billion and give me that money too. And you just devalue the company until it's worth absolutely nothing. But a sophisticated investor does the opposite. They start with something that's not worth a tremendous amount, and they encourage and support the investment in client or customer value to the point where they can charge the highest margins in profit because they are the most reliable, reputable brand in the market. And so here you have a shift in paradigm from maximizing shareholder value per quarter to maximizing customer value and a long-term model of investment. And the question that gets asked is not will this stop a shareholder from being sued, not this. Will this add value to our customer disproportionate to the cost? Because that's where the profit comes in. If I can make you 3 times happier as a customer by doing 20% different, that is gold for a business, because then what I can do is I do something 20% different, your value goes up 300%. I mark the product up 100%. You get 3 times the value as what was done before for a 100% price increase, which is a deal for the customer. That's an incredible deal. But what the company gets is it gets a 500% return on investment because they did 20% different or extra and got 100% higher price. And that is the domain of the win-win, highly profitable, value-oriented company. That's a paradigm shift from shareholder value. And then that is not the ultimate. That is not the ultimate paradigm. Paradigms can be nested within paradigms. Paradigms can form synergies with other paradigms. Technologies can form synergies with other paradigms, where in order to improve my hospital, I want to partner with leading cell phone app developers. And then I want to partner with Wi-Fi and this. So to where you get synergies between industries, synergies between paradigms, all with that bottom line goal of delivering more and more value for less and less energy so that everyone wins, so that we're on a continual trajectory towards intelligence, the efficiency with which time, money, and energy is invested to yield a higher and higher amount of personal well-being.